Melissa Bell, she's in Paris covering this latest attack. What's the latest, Melissa?
This police operation is still going on down here on the Champs-Élysées. The avenue remains entirely blocked off. It was 3 hours ago now, Wolf, that we now know that this man pulled up alongside a police vehicle, emerged from his car and began shooting. We heard the gunshots from up here on the CNN terrace, but assumed that it must have been fireworks. We now know that it was the sound of him shooting towards that police van. Of course, one policeman, as you mentioned, has tragically been shot, and already the political campaign that is in full swing here in France, and we are just days away from what many had already suggested was likely to be a historic presidential election with a massive shift possibly on the cards, depending on who could get elected. This story, these images from the Champs-Élysées tonight are now almost guaranteed to dominate the final push to the Élysée with this new piece of information, the crucial one tonight, with sources telling CNN that this man was under active surveillance. Now, one of the candidates in that race, Marine Le Pen, has made the question of what the French call the fichés, those people who are under active surveillance, and there are about 15,000 of them at the moment in France. She has said within the last few days she believes they should be thrown out of the country, and if she were president, that's what would happen the very next day. So that crucial piece of information really likely to play into this political campaign over the next couple of days, Wolf.
You know, we're just learning ISIS has now claimed responsibility for this attack on the streets of Paris. If in fact that turns out to be the case, Melissa, how will that play out? We know there are major presidential elections in France, national elections coming up on Sunday.
And again, another part of the far-right's narrative is that the question of fighting Islamist extremism in all its forms, and particularly in its violent forms here in France. Now, what we've seen over the course of the last few months are smaller-scale attacks with fewer numbers of people targeted, unlike the big attacks that we've seen over the last couple of years here in Paris, but specifically security forces targeted. We saw it tonight on the Champs-Élysées. We saw it at Orly Airport just a couple of weeks ago, and before that in the Louvre Museum. The very people out policing France's streets as a result of its state of emergency, the tens of thousands of policemen and women, the soldiers, they themselves are becoming the target, often of these people acting alone in a much smaller scale way, but deliberately targeting those out there protecting the streets of France. That appears to have been what happened tonight in Paris.